the more I've studied, and I've heard all my life that the number 5, and so I've got a little bit of discrepancy in that, but I'm going to give you what I've got, and you can make your own assessment of that, all right? But verse number, let's look, again, we're looking at number 4 tonight, the number 4. And let's go to Genesis chapter 1, verse number 14. And it says, "And God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years, and let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the," what's that next word? Earth. And it was so. And God made 2 great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. And God set them in the firmament of the heavens to give light upon the, what's that next word? Earth. And to rule over the days, over the night, and divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good, and the evening and the morning were the 4th day. So we have the 4th day. And God is creating in His creation, He's creating things, and He's creating lights, He's creating stars, He's creating the moon, He's creating all these things. But for what purpose is He creating them? He's creating them for the earth. You see that there. So when you go to the number 4, this is the 4th day. When you go to the number 4, I want you to have this thought in your mind that this is pertaining to the earth or dealing with creation, the earth. God's earth, what we have here around us. And as we go through this, I think it will make sense to you. So look in verse number 14 right here. And God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the nights, and let them be for signs and for, what's that next word? Seasons. And so as you're looking upon the earth we have seasons. Now, depending on what part of the earth you live on, some seasons are shorter or longer than others. You go to South Florida, summer's longer than spring and fall. But you live here, we have a pretty distinct spring, summer, fall, winter. It's pretty. I think sometimes we almost skip spring and we almost skip fall. We go right from summer to winter. But nevertheless, we have pretty distinct seasons. And so when you're thinking about seasons, how many seasons are there? I've just said there's 4. So he mentions that here in the 4th day. Everything's about the earth, His creation, and so you have seasons. So you have four seasons. You have the summer. You have spring, summer, fall, winter, and there are other names for that. Sometimes you will see in the Bible seed time. Seed time is spring. All right, and then you also see harvest. Seed time and harvest. That's spring and fall. You will see summer and winter. And I think I wrote down one. Go over to Genesis chapter 8, verse 22. Yeah, here it is. While the earth remaineth, seed time and harvest, and cold and heat, and summer and winter, the day and night shall not cease. So as long as the earth here, now look, you got all these global warming crowds out there and all this stuff. They're thinking that, the sky's falling. They've been hollering the sky's falling for how many years now, and we've only got, our time is ticking, and we're, the earth is fixing to burn up and all that. Well, it is, and some point it's going to, when the Lord comes back, and the Bible says the elements are going to melt with a fervent heat, but this is going to be after the millennial reign when He brings in the new heaven and the new earth. But that's not the study tonight. The verse 22, while the earth remaineth, seed time and harvest, and again, that is seed time is spring, harvest is fall, and cold and heat, that is summer and winter, and the day and night shall not cease. These things are not going to cease as long as the earth remaineth. So there you go. All right, so that's one thing. You have seasons. You also have, in God's creation, you have 4 elements. All right, and when I say elements, I don't want you to go to the element table, the table of elements. You know what I'm talking about. And you have, gold and silver and barium and, all those kind of things. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying when you look at basic elements, you have water, wind, fire, and earth. All right, those are the 4 basic elements that you have. And so that is, again, the number 4. You have 4 kingdoms. You have the animal kingdom, you have the mineral kingdom, you have the vegetable kingdom, and you have the spiritual kingdom. You have 4 kingdoms when it comes to that as far as the earth and its creation. You have, it mentioned the moon, it mentioned the lights, the lesser light and the greater light and the lesser light. And the 2 great lights, that's what it's talking about. It's talking about the sun and the moon. And when you're talking about the moon, Again, this was created for the earth to give light during the night. But what are the phases of the moon? You have 4 phases of the moon. You have the new moon. You have you have the first quarter, the new moon, the last quarter, and the full moon. That's basically what you have when you're doing with your basic moon phases. And then, so again, the number 4 dealing with the earth and what is pertaining to the earth. Now let's go over to some interesting ones over in Revelation. Chapter 7, verse number 1. And after these things, I saw 4 angels standing in the 4 corners of the earth. Well, you say, hold on a minute, preacher. The earth is round, and it's talking about corners. What in the world is it talking about? Well, this is not talking about actual squares. It's talking about north, south, east, and west. That's what it's talking about. And so when you're thinking about, that's how we give directions, right? That's how we get our bearings. We go north, we go south, we go east, we go west. Now we got GPS. We don't keep up with any of it. We just follow this thing like we don't have a clue where we're going sometimes. And I'm guilty of that. I going to some hospital somewhere I've never been to, and I type it in, and I don't know if I'm going north or south or whatever, but and we ended up making it there. But anyway, this is how we tell direction. This is what God uses many times, north, south, east, and west, the 4 corners of the earth. When he's saying the 4 corners of the earth, that's what he's talking about. The 4 winds, go to chapter 7, verse number 1 again. After these things I saw 4 angels standing on the 4 corners of the earth, holding the 4 winds of the earth. So again, when you're talking about winds, and when you go to the weather, it will tell you which direction the wind is blowing, and it will be north, south, east, west, or some variation of those 4 directions. And so you have that again in the fourth corners of the earth, the 4 winds. And then also another interesting one, back up one chapter, in chapter number 6 of Revelation, verse number 8. And it starts out with these. This is during the tribulation period. And there's 4 horsemen. And these 4 horsemen are designated to bring judgment upon the earth. All right, that's what they do. You have a black horse, a red horse, a white horse, and then you have a pale horse here. And it says, let me find it here, verse number 8 of chapter 6. And I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was Death, and hell followed with him. And the power was given unto him over the 4th part of the earth, to kill with the sword, with hunger, with death, and with the beast of the earth. So you have 4 horsemen who are dealing with the judgment upon the earth, and then you have this 4th one here, and this is, again, dealing with, he uses 4 things there to bring judgment upon the earth, and so, again, the number 4. So when you're thinking about the number 4, what does it pertain to? It pertains to the earth. So when you're reading through the Bible and you see the number 4 come out somewhere, you will realize that that is pertaining to the earth, or he's making a reference to something earthly, the number 4. All right, so the 4th day we see seasons, the elements, the 4 kingdoms, the moon phases. Oh, even the day itself. In the Bible, the day is divided up into 4 parts. It's morning, noon, evening, and night. That's how it's divided up. You'll see those time frames when you're coming through that. You have the 4 corners of the earth, the 4 winds of the earth, the 4 horsemen rendering judgment to the earth. So you have all of that. So that's the number 4. All right, so now let's go to the number 5. All right, now there is discrepancy about this, and some have heard, and this is what I was taught even coming up, was the number 5 represents grace. But as we look at this, and you go to look in the examples that God gives in the Bible, I think we can have a little bit of different vantage point of this. Anyway, so the number 5, I want us to look at this as connected with death. All right, the number 5 connected with death. And let's go back to Genesis. And interesting now, and I'm not big on doing chapters and verses. Chapters and verses are not inspired. Okay, you understand what I'm saying? The numbers that are there are not inspired. That was added not to the originals. That was not in the original manuscripts. That was added later on in history to help us to find a passage. You got what I'm saying? So a lot of times in the early times of like wandering through the wilderness and things like that, or reading in the times of synagogues and tabernacles, when they would get up to read, Ezra would get up to read, or Nehemiah would get up to read, and they would not say, okay, go to Genesis chapter 3. They would say, okay, let's go. We're going to read Genesis, and they would read the whole book. And at times they would stand there for 4 hours, standing while the Bible was being read. And so chapter and verse divisions came much later on. So I'm not an advocate of saying that they're inspired or anything, but I do think this is interesting. All right, so let's go to Genesis 5:5. All right, Genesis 5:5. And all the days that Adam lived were 930 years, and he died. All right, so you have Genesis 5, chapter 5, that is connected with death. All right, you see that. All right, and this is the first natural death. Now, we understand that Cain killed Abel. That was not a natural death. That was a murder. But you have the first natural death occurring here in Genesis 5:5. Go to Acts chapter 5. Acts 5:5 says this, and Ananias, hearing these words, fell down and gave up the ghost, and great fear came on all of them that heard these things. So you have Ananias and Sapphira. Remember, they lied to the disciples. They lied to the apostles about the land. They said, we sold this land and we're giving everything, but they had held back. And it wasn't that they held back, it's that they lied about it. And they lied to the Holy Spirit about it. They lied to the disciples about it, and God struck them dead right there in the church. And when that happened, this was the first supernatural death that you see, God actually taking someone's life. But that's Acts 5:5. 1 Samuel 17. Let's go to over there. Verse number 40. I still hear pages turning. All right. Everybody there? It's 1 Samuel 17, verse number 40. It says, and he took, this is the story of David and Goliath, but the number 5 is mentioned here, and it says, and he took his staff in his hand, and he chose him 5 smooth stones out of the brook, and put them in his shepherd's bag, which he had, even in a scrip, and his sling was in his hands, and he drew near to the Philistines. Why did he pick out 5 stones? What were those stones meant to do? Well, they were meant to kill. I mean, he put them in his bag as a weapon to go kill Goliath. He did kill Goliath with one of these stones. And, I also heard that he had other brothers and, that kind of thing. There's speculation about that. But nevertheless, these 5 are connected with the death of Goliath there. All right, now let's go to 2 Samuel. Chapter 2. We're going to have about 4 places right here in 2 Samuel that we're going to look at. But 2 Samuel chapter number 2, verse 23. There's a man being killed here, and this is Abner slays Asahel. I don't know how you pronounce that, but howbeit he refused to turn aside. This is chapter 2, verse number 23. Howbeit he refused to turn aside. Wherefore Abner with the hinder end of the spear smote him under the, which rib? The 5th rib. That the spear came out behind him, and he fell down there and died in the same place. And it came to pass that as many as came in the place where Asahel fell down and stood still. All right, so the 5th rib. And what is connected with hitting this person in the 5th rib? What's connected with that? He died. All right, you see that. All right, now go to chapter 3, verse number 27. And when Abner was returned to Hebron, Joab took him aside in the gate to speak with him quietly, and smote him there under the 5th rib, that he died for the blood of Asahel his brother. So this is a vengeance. He's carrying out vengeance here. And he gets him outside of the city of refuge, and he does the same exact thing that Asahel did to Abner's brother. And Abner killed him right there. But where did he kill him? How did he kill him? Which rib? The fifth rib, and that's connected with death as well. And then you go to chapter number 4, verse number 6. And they came thither into the midst of the house, as though they would have fetched wheat. And they smote him under the fifth rib, and Rechab and Baanah was his brother escaped. So you have that again, the fifth rib. And this is Ishbosheth. Ishbosheth was slain under the fifth rib. And again, death is related to that as well. And then you go to chapter 20. Verse number 10. But Amasa took no heed to the sword that was in Joab's hand. So he smote him therewith in the fifth rib, and shed out his bowels to the ground, and struck him not again, and he died. And so there it is again, the fifth rib, and 5 being connected with death once again. When you're thinking about the number 5, and we won't go and read all of this, but when you're thinking about the number 5, and you're thinking about the wounds that Jesus had on the cross, or at least the instruments that were used to bring wounds. All right, so you have, at least it is believed by many, that you had 2 hands, right? There was a nail in each hand. That's 2. You had 1 nail in both feet. All right, you with me? 1 nail connecting the feet together into the cross. So that's 3. Then you have the spear that pierced his side, and there are some people who believe that it's not in Scripture this way, but some people believe that that's where he was speared, is under the fifth rib. That was a certain death blow. All right, and the Romans knew this very well. And so the spear that pierced his side, and then you also had the crown of thorns, and that would be the 5th thing that's there. And again, that's connected with death also. And I read something somewhere, I didn't have time to study this one out all the way, but 5 garments that were parted, or 5 ways. You remember how they parted garments there at the feet of the cross? There was 5 of those. And then also, do you remember when you're going into the tabernacle or you're going into the temple, what was the first article of furniture that you would come to? Anybody know that one? Anybody? The first thing as you entered into the temple, the very first article of furniture you would come to would be the brazen altar. All right, before you ever get into the Holy of Holies, there had to be a sacrifice. You understand what I'm saying? There had to be a sacrifice. Before you can ever get cleansing, before you could ever get into the Holy of Holies, experience the bread, the altar of incense, your prayers being heard, and getting into the Holy of Holies, there had to be the sacrifice. All right, so when you get to the brazen altar, and there at the brazen altar, if you go and look at that, it is 5 cubits, 5 by 5 cubits by 5 cubits. Isn't that interesting? And so this is a place of death. This is a place of sacrifice, a place of death. And this is where the brazen altar was. So again, connection with death in the 5 there. 2 Corinthians 11:24. Now, the Apostle Paul, there was a lot of people who wanted to kill the Apostle Paul. You remember even at one point, they had to lower him down from a basket over the city wall to escape the religious crowd. You remember that? Right after he got saved, they lowered him down in a basket so he could escape because they were looking for him. They were waiting for him to come out, and they were going to kill him. Well, throughout his life, we know that he suffered many things for the cause of Christ and because of what he preached. And so chapter 11, verse number 24... And when he had given thanks, I'm in 1 Corinthians. That's the Lord's Supper. 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verse number 24. Of the Jews, 5 times received I 40 stripes, save 1. Now, it is believed, really what they tried to do with these whippings was to kill someone with them. All right, that was what they tried to do. By law, by Roman law, they could not do 40 stripes. All right, so they would do 39. The Romans could do 40, but they could only do 39 under their law. All right, but every time that they beat him, it was an attempt to try to kill him. So 5 times they tried to do that, and again, you see that connection with five times they beat him with 39 stripes. And most of the time, this is a cat of 9 tails or something like that would actually pull flesh from the bone and rip muscle, and those kind of things off of the flesh. So 5 times they did that. So what's 5 times 39? This was in different occasions, but 5 times this happened throughout his lifetime and throughout his ministry. 39 times 5, ever how many that is? That's how many times he was beaten with a whip there, with the intention, again, the Jews wanting to kill him, and with the intention of death. And you see that here with the number 5 again. They did that 5 times, trying to connect that with death as well. So, so number 1 deals with unity. Number 2 deals with division. Number 3 deals with being made whole, fullness, completion, those type things, that type of idea. Number 4 deals with the earth, nature, and earthly things. And then number 5, dealing with death. And again, I didn't come up thinking that, but when I was studying this, there's more connection with that than there is anything else. And to try to, there are some people who tried to connect grace with the number 5, and I see a few instances of that. But some would even say, well, Jesus' name and the name Christ have 5 in it, so this connected to grace. But you can't do that because Judas has 5 in it too. You understand what I'm saying? So that's not, you can't connect it that way, and it be accurate. At least I don't feel like. But anyway, that's an interesting study. If you think something different, go study it, and we'll compare notes. We'll compare and see what you come up with. And but that's what I came up with when I was reading and studying this. All right. So number 4 deals with the earth, pertaining to the earth. Number 5 is a connection with death. And we see that, and I think I've given you several examples of that as we've looked through this. So, all right. Any questions on any of that thus far? And we're a little early tonight as well. So, anything? All right. Comments? Anything? Is this study interesting to you? It's a little different, isn't it? A little different. I thought I'd break it up a little bit and get something in here and just break up the monotony. That's not monotonous studying the Bible, but sometimes we can get in a rut. You know what I mean? Sometimes we get in a rut and just need a little break, and I thought this would give you a little break for a few weeks anyway. But we'll continue this, and we'll go to 6 and 7, and I don't know how far we'll get. I know there are some significant numbers. I want to deal with the number 40. That's a significant number. Number 13 is a significant number. But it's also a negative number, like number 5 and number 4. And, well, number 4 is not really negative, but number 6, the number of man. So we'll see all this as we go through that, and I'll give you some examples, and you can go. I hope you're writing these down. Maybe some of these references down. You can go back and kind of just peruse them and kind of read over them yourself a little bit and kind of let that soak in. So, all right. Well, let's bow for a word of prayer. Okay, Father, we are